Hello students, our today's chapter is Principle of Inheritance and Variation. Principle of Inheritance and Variation. So in this chapter there are two terms. One is heredity. These are the basic terms which we should understand before moving into the topic. Heredity and variation. Heredity is the transfer of character from one generation to the other. If there are two generations G1 and G2, transfer of character from G1 to G2 happens due to heredity. Okay, transfer of character happens due to heredity. But variation is the change of character from G1 to G2. Variation is the change of character from G1 to G2. Variation basically happens due to two things. One is recombination. We'll understand these two things later. And mutation. These are the two things. These are the two things which are cause of variation. Okay. These are the two things which are cause of variation. Before moving into the chapter, we will understand what is DNA and what is a gene. First, we will understand what is DNA. DNA is the genetic material or the information fed into a cell. DNA is the genetic material or the information fed into a cell. There is a cell. This is the nucleus. Inside the nucleus there is DNA or the genetic material. Okay. Inside the cell there is DNA or the genetic material. As we take example of a phone has a software. Okay, phone has a software. If we press 5 on the phone, it shows 5 on the screen. That means the phone knows what is the information required to show 5 on the screen. Okay, if we press 5, it shows 5 on the display. That means the phone has a software which know how to display the number when we press 5. Okay, this is similarly DNA is the software of the cell. DNA is the software of the cell, which is DNA is the software of a cell, which is the information fed into a cell. Okay, DNA basically produces proteins. Proteins are the working hand of DNA, and DNA produces protein through which DNA works. Okay, DNA is the information, and when these information are translated into the proteins. Okay, proteins are the working hand of the DNA. Okay, so we understood what is DNA. Now we'll understood what is gene. These are the basic things which we have to learn before moving into this chapter. What is gene? Gene is a piece of DNA which produces a protein. That means there are pieces of DNA which are not producing the protein. If a DNA produces a protein, that is called gene. Okay, if a DNA produces a protein, if a DNA produces a protein that is called a gene or functional DNA, that is called gene. Okay, now we understood what is gene and what is DNA. There are some terminologies in this chapter such as character, trait, homozygous, heterozygous, heterozygous, phenotype, genotype, dominant and recessive, etc. So what is character? We'll go one by one. What is character? Character is if we take a plant, if we measure the height of the plant, that is height is the character. It can be of two types. One is tall, plant can be of tall, a plant can be dwarf. These two are the traits. One is character, one is trait. Okay, you understood? One is character and one is trait. Height is the character. It can be of two types, tall and dwarf. So tall and dwarf are the traits. Okay, then we'll understand what is homozygous. We understood what is character, what is trait. Then we will understand what is homozygous, heterozygous. Homozygous. If there is a plant and the plant is tall, it will represent a tall plant as TT, capital T. These are the alleles. T are the alleles. These are the alleles of a gene. Okay, these are the alleles of a gene. If we represent the tall plant as TT, if both the alleles are same, then it is called homozygous. As we see here, both the alleles are same. Both the alleles are TT, capital T, both the alleles are same. So this is called homozygous condition. Similarly, there are heterozygous condition. If both the alleles are different, if the alleles are capital T and small t, it is called heterozygous condition. It is called heterozygous condition. Okay, we understood what is homozygous, heterozygous. Then we will understand what is phenotype and what is genotype. Okay, phenotype is the morphological character. What we see, or how the plant or how the object looks, it is under phenotype. Morphological character of the object, it is known as phenotype. If we take a plant, tallness or dwarfness is the phenotype. When we represent this tallness and dwarfness in genes and genetic makeups, such as TT for tallness, for tall, and small t for dwarf, this is called genotype. Okay, when genotype is the genetic makeup, it is the genetic makeup of the plant. Is the genetic makeup of the object or the plant. Here we have taken tall for TT. Tall is TT, capital T, dwarf is small t. So the genetic makeup is capital T or small t. Okay. This is how phenotype and genotype are different from each other. We understood what is phenotype and genotype. Now we will understand what is dominant and what is recessive. Okay. Dominant means, as the name says, dominant means it shows the dominant character. If there are two characters, one is tall, one is dwarf, one is dwarf, between the two characters we can see tall is the dominant character. Okay, tall is the dominant character. So the gene which expresses tallness is known as the dominant gene. If we express tallness as TT, capital T, then it is the dominant gene. So capital T represents the dominant gene. So dominant gene produces a protein or enzyme which is always dominant, okay, which is always dominant. Now comes the recessive gene which produces a recessive character. That does not mean recessive is not expressed. Recessive is expressed. Dominant is highly expressed to express the dominant character, but recessive is expressed, but it is not the dominant character. It is the recessive character. Okay, it is the recessive character. As dwarf is the recessive character, we represent it as small t and small t. So it is the recessivity or the recessive character, which is dwarf. Okay. Now we understood all the terms. Now come to the genetics or the history of genetics. There was a scientist called Gregor Johann Mendel. He was a scientist and he experimented with the pea plant. Because pea plant has two things. One is short life cycle. He can work with pea plant very short time, within very short time, and the second thing is pea plant has many contrasting character. Contrasting character means the character which are opposite to each other. That means if we take the pod color or the pod shape of the plant, there is two forms. One is wrinkled, one is round. Okay, if we take pod shape of the plant or seed shape of the plant, there is round which is dominant and there is wrinkled. This is the contrasting character. There are two characters which are opposite to each other for a particular. There are two traits which are opposite to each other for a particular character. Okay, these are called contrasting character. Now these characters, there are 7 characters which Gregor Johann Mendel found in the pea plant. Okay, he experimented with the 7 contrasting character of the pea plant. Okay, those 7 characters were seed shape, pod color, flower color, pod color, flower position, stem height. Stem height and pod shape is done. Seed shape, flower position, flower color, flower position, pod shape, seed shape, it is done. Seed color is left. Okay, so these are the 7 contrasting characters which are opposite to each other. Mendel worked upon these 7 contrasting characters of the pea plant. Okay, these due to two things, short life cycle and the many contrasting characters. These are the characters due to this Mendel chose the pea plant. Okay, so Mendel experimented from 1856 to 1863. Then he published his work. But his work was unnoticed till 1990. His work was unnoticed and unrecognized. Later, three scientists came. In 1990. 3 scientists came. They rediscovered the work. Then regarded Mendel as the father of genetics. This show the father of the genetics. They show people that there are some extraordinary experiments what Mendel did, and he formulated 3 laws on this. One is law of dominance, second is law of segregation, and third is law of independent assortment.